the important part of your story is that's where you have the availability or the opportunity to connect with the person on the other end. But you've got to be really succinct about it. Like some people want to drone on and on all about themselves. Like we have clients that have given us pitches and we say to them like, we're advising against this. So you've got to be really pithy. So like for you, Lynn, we wanted to go after successful female entrepreneurs. And we thought, you know what? You're a mom and you have the single mom story. It would be so easy to pitch you to other moms because other moms that are business owners are going to open this and go, oh, I know I'm going to hit it off with this person.
Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. It's Lynn Padetti here, helping you to achieve time freedom so you have more time for family, self, business, and life. Now, in today's episode, you're going to hear from Kristin Molenaar, who is the founder of YesBossVA. She helps you to build your personal brand by being featured on other people's podcasts. So I have been on so many podcasts and I know the power of podcasts. This is an opportunity for you to reach new audience, to share your message so that more people can come in and be excited to work for you. Now listen up as she shares her tips on how to write the right pitch, how to build a relationship even after you become the podcast guest, and more. Hey guys, it's Lynn here again, and today I have my good friend Kristin Molenaar, who is the owner of Yes Boss, and we're here to share with you how you can build your personal brand by being on people's podcasts, so being that podcast guest that everyone wants. So welcome, Kristin.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to officially have a recorded conversation together.
Yes, we're always jamming it out there, and I know we get on so well in business and life. But I'm so intrigued with what you can do because I've had a taste of your service, but I know you're even teaching more people how to be a podcast guest. And yeah, I just wanted to hear your quick journey on like, why did you be, where did this idea come from? That you decided to be the expert in podcast guesting.
Gosh, as a podcast guest regular, I'm always trying to figure out how to tighten up my story to like include all of those really relevant parts because the journey is like so long and so big. But the real thing that got me to where I am now is I started out as a virtual assistant. So I started out making $15 an hour and I figured out how to grow that agency into a six-figure agency that didn't need my support. So the agency pretty much ran without me. And before that, I had really struggled as an entrepreneur. So the virtual assistant world was the first time that I had ever experienced any success. And I wanted to get out there and start talking to people about how they were overcomplicating entrepreneurship. I saw people just doing all the things, doing all the marketing, all the monetization methods, just doing everything under the sun to try to make a buck. And it really frustrated me because I realized that entrepreneurship didn't have to be as hard as people were making it. So I told my team that I wanted to start being a podcast guest. And in my heart, it was this philanthropic thing. Like I wanted to just talk about it. Truth be told, 6 months later, I had still not pitched myself to be a guest on somebody's podcast because I started to get in my head about it. So my team stepped in and said, hey, Kristin, it's time for you to get out there. Let us just pitch for you. So my team started pitching for me, my wonderful, wonderful team. I know you and I share that in common. We just love our teams. So my team started pitching for me and I became a guest and we realized that that was the most profitable thing that I was doing. It was our number one lead generation and I loved it. Like I love just showing up and talking. And so we were looking for a niche. We were looking for what our team was going to focus in and start doing. And we thought, you know what? This is the most successful thing that we're doing for ourselves. We've tested it now with our clients and seen it be successful for our clients. We're going to not do anything else anymore. We are only going to go after podcast guest strategy. So that's all we do.
Yeah. Did I get you to read Built to Sell?
You did.
Ah, yes. Hallelujah.
Yeah,
now I love it. And you do shine in this space. So you touched point on the fact that it was more profitable being a podcast guest. So how did it create more profit? What exactly happens when you're a podcast guest?
Yeah. So on the back end of being a profitable podcast guest, honestly, it's all about relationships. So I think a lot of people think about profitable podcast guesting in terms of either traditional marketing, which would say to get exposure for a very large audience, which yes, you can do that as a guest. And then they also say PR, like get on the most name recognizable podcast, right? So like get that credibility that you can bounce off of. those things are true, but the real profit that I saw was the relationships on the back end. So I'm a people person. I love meeting other people. I love leveraging stuff. So what I've experienced is through relationships with the person on the other side of the microphone, I've been able to do things like get invited to speak as a guest expert in their paid programs. So what I say to our clients is like getting invited to speak in front of a bunch of people who have already proven that they open their wallet is way more profitable than talking to a free audience. So when those opportunities come up, I'm always on board with that. We've infiltrated email sequences. So we've found collaborative partnerships where people, when somebody's attracted to someone else's business, they automatically hear about our business as well. I've been invited to speak on stages. I've met people who have introduced me to people in their network and just been referral partners. There've just been all of these ways, but at the root of it, it really comes from relationships, which is such a, I would say it flows naturally for me, but it also is so fulfilling for me as well.
Yeah. And I'm sure with anything, it can be learned, even though we're a people person, but if with given the right process and system, anyone can just build a great relationship. It's just a method in what we do. We do it so natural, but there is a method. Before we get into the relationship part, love to hear, okay, how do you get on the podcast? What is the steps that takes you to, win that little opportunity?
So we have found that at the very beginning is your pitch, and your pitch sets you up to be profitable. So the thing that I hear from a lot of people that have been a guest on podcasts, but they haven't experienced any benefit or any profit from it, is typically because they're not setting themselves up for success. And so our service, part of what we do for our clients, we write that pitch for our clients because that's where it all starts. So we really sit down with our clients and figure out, how do we write a bio that's going to get you noticed when somebody opens that pitch email? And how can we write talking points that is going to tee up a conversation that after you get done with the recording, the podcast host is thinking, oh, I know this person and this person that I need to refer to this new podcast host. I could do this collaborative thing with the person. I can invite them. I could, refer them to this podcast host that, they're friends with. So we want to make sure that we're teeing up a conversation for that podcast. That is the thing that's going to get you in the door for a profitable conversation. So to kind of dial it in a little bit deeper with the talking points, like be looking to things like your methodology and how you make a difference in people's lives. If you want to talk about your accolades, it's got to be tied into an action that the people listening can get from the conversation with you. So we work with our clients. That's the done for you part of our service. We work with them to really write a pitch that's going to resonate so that you get the best, I want to say like bang for your buck, but that sounds so silly. Like get the highest conversion rate, honestly. Yeah. Like you can experience much higher conversion rates with a really good pitch.
Yeah. So do you feel like you have one chance at it, or can you pitch again? So let's just say, you found a podcast that you want to be on and you've pitched them a story. And is that really that one chance that you've got to do it? So you want to get it right?
No, I don't think so. Like I would say that you want to make sure that you come in with a strong pitch so that you're not wasting time. But some people have ambitions to be on specific episodes. And there's a couple ways to get in the doors with specific episodes. The cold pitch is just one of the strategies. We always suggest following up. If you're really ambitious and you really want that show, you can follow up with video messages. You can, hang out with people on social media and get on their radar through social media. We also have a strategy we like to talk to our clients about called a snowball strategy. And what this means is if you have somebody who is like your target podcast, you sometimes can't just go and knock on that person's door. The analogy I give is like the queen. Say you wanted to be invited to the queen's house. Like, good luck. You're just not going to get it, right? But there are people who already have intimate relationships and are known, liked, and trusted by the queen. Those people are people that you can go after to then snowball into that bigger podcast that you want to go after. So that's another one of the strategies that we teach our clients, because no, it's not just the cold pitch. It kind of just depends on what strategy you're going after and what's best for your business.
Okay. And apart from your expertise, is it important to know your kind of story, your upbringing, something that is catchy? Because I know with mine, you kind of, I think you nut down the fact that it was a single mum and then became, built a successful business or something. How important is it having your kind of story in that pitch?
So I would say that your story has the important part of your story is that's where you have the availability or the opportunity to connect with the person on the other end. But you've got to be really succinct about it. Like some people want to drone on and on all about themselves. Like we have clients that have given us pitches and we say to them like, we're advising against this. So you've got to be really pithy. So like for you, Lynn, we wanted to go after successful female entrepreneurs. And we thought, you know what? You're a mom and you have the single mom story. It would be so easy to pitch you to other moms because other moms that are business owners are going to open this and go, oh, I know I'm going to hit it off with this person. And really that also tees you up for more success on the relationship back end, because if you're connecting and you have that, personal common interest, the likelihood of that person wanting to collaborate with you, do business with you on the back end, actually be a friend, have it be something that is totally genuine, your chances for that go up a lot. So we want to find, what's your point of differentiation here and how can we really highlight that in a way that's going to quickly get you noticed by the right people.
Okay, awesome stuff. Now, how do we find these podcasts? Do you just go on iTunes and go to the category that you like? And what's the process there on filtering who to pitch it to?
We send it to everyone. No, I'm just kidding. No, you've got to be really specific with your research. So depending on what kind of business you have, there are a couple different ways to do research. The first one is following an influencer path. So like for you, Lynn, we found another mom who was a successful entrepreneur that had done a lot of podcasting before. And then we looked at what podcast that person had been on for clues to what podcast might also be a good fit for you. So who's an influencer whose path you can follow? Now that works really well for somebody in a position like you, but we have other clients that say to us like, I have a really niche market and I want to stay in just like an Australian market. And it has to be, people that come from like a technology background or something like that. Sometimes it's hard to find an influencer path to follow in those cases. And that's when we really lean on keyword research. So there are a lot of tools that you can use. And my team is honestly more up to date with the tools. We provide the training to our clients, but I don't do the research. So the latest tools they're using this week, they would have to let you know. But you really just rely on that keyword research to find people, and then you can narrow it down by location as well.
Okay, and then how do you connect with them? Like, do you then find their email on their website and then email them? What's the best way to connect with them?
We always try to go after email. We feel like it's the easiest way to show up. It's the easiest way to follow up. I've talked to a lot of people that put a lot of prerequisites in front of an email, like engage on social media before sending an email. But we have some tips and tricks up our sleeve when it comes to like what subject lines to write to get people to open your email, that kind of thing. So we always prefer email if you can find that email address. That's the first route for us.
And if you can't find it, then it's just about trying other social media channels, or is it just giving up on them and pick something else that has an email? What would you say?
So I would say the people that you can't find an email address for are usually like the really big people, like the queens of, the podcast industry. And in that case, like we didn't touch on this as another research strategy, but in cases like that, we tend to try to get our clients or get me featured on the podcast of people that have been featured on that top person's podcast. So we're trying to open up some of those doors and then hoping that an introduction will open us up to the bigger doors. It's very unlikely that my team comes up with a podcast that we just cannot find an email address and there's no form, because a lot of podcasts are also accepting, applicants via an online form.
Yeah. Okay. And now if there's someone that maybe don't have a strong personal brand yet at all, maybe they've got a business, been busy doing business, and then maybe it's time for them to build an asset under their brand. Do you think that, what's tips would you give to them in terms of giving them more chance to win that podcast opportunity? So for example, if I did pitch to someone and they did search me up, there is a fair bit of other stuff that's going on in online for me, and I feel like maybe I have a bit more chance to being accepted, whereas someone else, maybe you Google it up. I have a friend that she's been doing business but just being silent and secretive, let's say, and now if you did search her up, there's nowhere to be seen, not much, right? So what tip would you give to that kind of?
Well, that was me.
Okay.
That was 100% me when my team started pitching me. And that was the biggest apprehension that I have, and why it took me 6 months to actually pitch myself, because I realized like I built my business not on social media. I didn't do social media. I only now do LinkedIn, and I had a really crappy website, to be honest with you. Like now my website is, I've been able to hire a brand person and all of these things, but that was me. And this, I think, is the perfect opportunity for somebody. So I wanted to go from being seen as a doer. So, I ran a virtual assistant agency, but people still referred to me as, oh, I have a friend who's a really great VA. And I kept going, oh my gosh, I'm not a VA. I can help you find a VA, but stop calling me a VA. I want to up level how I'm seen. Like I want to go from being a doer to being an expert. And here's the thing. You've got to start controlling the narrative around how people see you. And this is an excellent way to do that. So what I did in the very beginning is we got involved in some Facebook groups that help people launch podcasts. And I started pitching myself to people who were launching their podcasts so I could get on newer podcasts. This took down the barriers way far down. I no longer felt nervous because these were new podcasters and I was new to being a podcast guest. But let me tell you this, those have been some of the best and most profitable relationships, because if you think about an entrepreneur who's deciding to be a podcast host, that's an ambitious person. Like it is a big undertaking to say like, I'm going to start a podcast. That person, when their podcast doesn't work, they're going to move on to the next strategy. Like they're going to keep hustling and their network is going to grow. And honestly, you're going to stand out in their mind. Like there's one person in particular that has referred tons of clients to me. And now she's gone on to interview additional people that are bigger in the industry. And she's now introduced me to them. But we pitched her when she had only released 10 episodes. And there's this, SEO is built up right from the beginning. So when you're searching your name, if you're on beginning or podcasts that are more in the beginning stages of their life, you still are going to be building up that credibility. You still also have that content to repurpose for your social platforms where you can say like, hey, look at Lynn bragging about me on her podcast. Like that's going to boost your credibility. Nobody's going to be thinking like, well, who's that person that's saying that Kristin is great? Or who's that person that's saying Lynn is great? They're just going to see that somebody else is saying we're great, and the credibility is going to be lifted as a result. So if you're new to it, if you're feeling apprehensive to it, just get involved with people who are also new to it and start networking and leveraging those relationships with those people.
Oh, wow. Awesome stuff. Yeah, really, there's no excuse. You can always start anywhere. And I agree with you. When I was starting out my podcast, I was open to, anyone good out there, because it can be difficult for someone that's starting out on a podcast. They really just do want good guests. And they're not going to be as difficult as someone that's like Lewis Howes, who's got it's more, very impossible to get on there. Okay, let's touch on the relationship part before we end, because I know we can talk all day about this. And plus, I know that it's not something you can learn all in one day. It's something that they're going to need more coaching from you as well. But the relationship part. So at the beginning, we mentioned it's not about just the podcast. It's about after the podcast. All right, you've been interviewed. Your podcast episode will be released sometimes next month and sometimes maybe a couple months, because there is usually a backlog when it comes to people interviewing you, because it takes a bit of a production. So that's something to expect. It's not like interview and your episode is out tomorrow. Okay, so in between, after you've interviewed, what happens from then that you recommend?
So before you ever hang up the call, like after the recording stopped, but before you say, okay, bye, thanks for having me, you want to ask this question. And that is, how can I be a valuable connection for you? And that really tees up the conversation that, look, I so appreciate you having me as a guest on your podcast. Like I say to people regularly, thank you so much for just inviting me to be on your podcast, for having me on your podcast. Like the fact that they're sharing the microphone spot with you, that's huge. And saying, if there's ever any way that I can be of value to you, please don't hesitate to let me know. I want to continue this relationship beyond just the recording of this interview. It sets that foundation that when you follow up, a week later, month later, whatever, like they're expecting it. And you're also, I don't know, for me, it's like, you're almost like putting yourself on the hook for it. Like you're not going to just disappear out of nowhere, because that's really inauthentic to say you want to be a valuable connection and then disappear.
Yeah.
And then what I do is I actually take notes. So I list out what opportunities do they have that I can be involved in? What opportunities do I have that they can be involved in? Who in their network do I want to meet? Who in my network could I introduce to them? And then we put it on a calendar. We can do things as simple as showing up on their social media and just commenting on their posts. Like be an engager, DM them and say like, this is such a good post, or actually introduce them to somebody in your network if you think that there could be some synergy there. Like it doesn't have to necessarily be with you. You could introduce somebody over here with the podcast host and you still look like a rock star. Yeah. And then the next thing is make sure that you promote the episode. Like, I think that some people think like, well, it wasn't that big of a podcast. I don't know if I want to promote it, or they just don't put value in it and they expect that, the host is going to promote the episode and like their business is going to change overnight. Well, no, it's on our lap too as the podcast guest to be promoting the episode. And when you're not promoting that episode, you're missing out on the ability to really raise your credibility to your audience, no matter how small it is. Even if you have a list of 100 people on your email list, but you send them the link to a podcast interview that you were featured on, like they're going to go, whoa, wow, this is kind of cool. The person that I'm following is getting some media. They're getting out there, liked people. Yeah. If that makes sense. Yeah. So show people that you are liked and it's going to raise your credibility. And I think that it's going to just nurture the people that are already in your circle so much better.
Yeah. You just touched on a really good keyword there, media. So we forget that, back then the media is the TV, the newspaper, but this is just a new form of media here that you're forgetting that this is something you should take advantage of, that you are being, interviewed by a type of media. This actually sits evergreen online as well. So it is bigger than you think it is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, when I was featured on those podcasts that only had 10 episodes, I was episode 15, now there's over 100, I don't know, maybe over 150. I haven't looked recently, but when somebody new discovers that friend of mine, they scroll back to the beginning. Oh, and guess whose name shows up on episode number 15? Like the people that are binging her episodes, like it's evergreen content. Even if the podcaster decides not to produce their podcast anymore, it still lives on the web. You still get that Google hit when you're looking up your own name. So there's so much credibility there, and it's a medium that is so easy to take advantage of, and I would say it's so much fun too.
Yeah, I feel like it's trending even more now. Like I think more and more people are just setting up their own podcast shows. So I think it's definitely a time to take advantage of being a podcast guest. So thank you so much. Let me know, I will let the audience know how they can connect with you and what's your two service, so that at least people have some option. Because at the end of the day, I know when I'm listening to something, I'm like, okay, how do you help me? Like I like you. Like, what do you do? What do I do now?
Yeah, so we really help people increase their visibility and credibility as a podcast guest. So we write the pitch for our clients, and then we teach you how to go out and get your own podcast bookings if you're wanting to have control of that. This is perfect for somebody who has a virtual assistant already on their team, or they're looking for somebody to bring into their team where they can just, go gangbusters when it comes to being a podcast guest. And we also talk to you or teach you about how to really build the relationships and what to look for on that relationship end. So that's our flagship program. It's a 90-day program. If you're also looking for done-for-you bookings, we're still doing a few of those with our clients as well. The people that are like, just get me featured. I just need to hand it over to somebody else. So we can help you there. And our website is YesBossVA.com. And the only social media platform I hang out on is LinkedIn. And when you Google my name, or not Google, when you search for my name in that LinkedIn search bar, I'm the only one that comes up.
Yep. And then and then on all everyone else's podcasts as well. So
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, thank you so much.
This was fun. Thank you for having me.
So there you go. Hope you enjoyed this episode like I did. I really loved the part where she taught me how to collaborate with the podcaster. So at the end, after you finish recording, this is where you add value and help one another. That is the most important part that I really hope that you guys could take away as well. But love to hear from you guys. Who are your favorite podcaster, or what is your favorite podcast channel? Love to hear in the comments below. And if you love to learn more about how to grow your business, then I have more videos here for you as well.